President. I take the floor today to inform the Senate, my colleagues, about how I intend to vote on the pending nomination of Supreme Court nominee Judge Sotomayor. I understand the path of least resistance for me personally would be to vote no. That's probably true anytime you're in a minority party and you lost the election, but I feel compelled to vote yes, and I feel that this is the right vote for me and, quite frankly, for the country in this case. Why do I say that? Elections have consequences. I told Judge Sotomayor in the hearing that if I had won the election, even though I wasn't running, or Senator McCain, she would probably not have been chosen by a Republican. We would have chosen someone with a more conservative background, someone like a Judge Roberts or Miguel Estrada. She is definitely more liberal than a Republican would have chosen, but I do believe that elections have consequences, and it's not like we hid from the American people during the campaign that the Supreme Court selections were at stake. Both sides openly campaigned on the idea that the next president would be able to pick some judges for the Supreme Court. That was known to the American people, and the American people spoke. Now, in that regard, having been one of the chief supporters of Senator McCain and one of the chief opponents of then Senator Obama, I feel that he deserves some deference on my part when it comes to his first selection to the Supreme Court. I say that understanding that under our Constitution, I or no other senator would be bound by the pick of a president. But when you look at the history of this country, generally speaking, great deference has been given to that selection by the United States Senate. While I'm not bound to vote for Judge Sotomayor, it would be the path of least political resistance for me. I choose to vote for Judge Sotomayor because I believe she is well qualified. And we're talking about one of the most qualified nominees to be selected for the Supreme Court in decades. She has 17 years of judicial experience. 12 of those years, she was on the Second Circuit Court of Appeals. I've looked at her record closely. I believe that she follows precedent, that she has not been an activist judge in the sense that would make her disqualified, in my view. Left-of-center reasoning, but within the mainstream. She has an outstanding background as a lawyer. She was a prosecutor for 4 years in New York, and her record of academic achievement is extraordinary. Coming up from tough circumstances, being raised by a single mother, going to Princeton, being picked as the top student there, doing an extraordinary job in law school, has a strong work ethic. That all mattered to me. And it's just not my view that her legal reasoning was within the mainstream. She received the ABA, American Bar Association's highest rating as well qualified. And the reason I mention that is that I don't feel bound by their rating, but during the Alito Roberts confirmation hearings for Supreme Court under President Bush, I use that as a positive for both of those nominees. And I feel as a Republican, I can't use it one time and ignore it the other. So the fact that she received the highest rating for the American Bar Association made a difference to me. Her life story, as I indicated before, is something that every American should be proud of. And if her selection to the Supreme Court will inspire young women, particularly Latino women, to seek a career in the law, that is a good thing, and I hope it will. On balance, I do believe that the court will not dramatically change in terms of ideology with her selection. Justice Souter, who I respect as an individual, has been far more liberal than I prefer in a judge, and I think Justice Sotomayor will not be any more liberal than him, and on some issues, quite frankly, may be more balanced in her approach, particularly when it comes to the war on terror, the use of international law, and potentially the Second Amendment, but time will tell, I'm not voting for her believing I know how she will decide a case. I'm voting for her because I find her to be well qualified. Elections matter, and the people who have served along her side for many years find an extraordinary woman in Judge Sotomayor, and I confirm their findings. Now, what standard did I use? Every senator in this body, at the end of the day, has to decide how to give their advice and consent. One of the things I chose not to do was use Senator Obama's standard when it came to casting my vote for Judge Sotomayor. If those who follow the Senate will recall, Senator Obama voted against both Alito and Roberts, and he used the rationale that they were well qualified, that they were extraordinarily gifted when it came to being able to intellectually gifted, but the last mile of confirmation when it came to Judge Roberts was the heart, because the 5% of controversial cases that kind of change society, you have to look and see what's in a judge's heart. Then and now, I totally reject that. If the United States Senate tries to have a confirmation process of where we explore another person's heart, I think we're going to chill out people wanting to become members of the judiciary. Who would want to come before the Senate and have us try to figure out what's in your heart? Can you imagine the questions we would be allowed to ask? I think it would have a tremendous chilling effect on the future recruitment of qualified candidates to be judges. And let me say this, Judge Sotomayor agreed with me and Senator Kyl that trying to find out what's in the judge's heart is probably not a good idea. He also indicated that judicial philosophy and ideology were outcome determinative when it came to Judge Alito. If I used his standard, knowing that her philosophy is different than mine, her ideology is different than mine, she would have no hope of getting my vote, and I would dare say not one Republican using the Obama standard would provide her with a confirmation vote. So I decided to reject that because I believe it is not in the long-term interest of the Senate or the judiciary. I went back to a standard that I think has stood the test of time, the qualification standard. Is this person qualified to sit on the court? Are they a person of good character? Do they present an extraordinary circumstance, having something about their life that would make them extraordinary to the point that they would be unqualified? There was a time in this country where a justice like Justice Ginsburg, who is clearly left of center, received 90-something votes from this body. There was a time in this country not long ago where a conservative judge like Justice Scalia received over 95 votes from this body. Every Democrat who voted for Justice Scalia could not have been fooled as to what they were getting. They were getting an extremely qualified, talented, intellectual man who was qualified for the job, who had a different philosophy than most Democrats.